For millions of us, public transit is an absolute lifeline. But what happens when that lifeline is just out of reach? Today, we're going to break down the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and what it really means for our buses and trains. We'll get into what the law actually demands and what accessibility looks like, and frankly, doesn't look like in the real world. So let's dive in.
You know, this quote right here, it perfectly captures the whole spirit of the law. The ADA isn't about creating some kind of separate, special system. Nope. It's about one single, powerful principle, making sure everyone has the right to use the exact same public transit system as their friends and their neighbors. It's all about integration, not separation.
And let's be really clear about this. The ADA isn't just a list of suggestions. It is a federal civil rights law. If a transit agency takes federal money, and pretty much all of them do, then following these rules is not optional. But the law is also realistic. It doesn't demand perfection overnight. What it does demand is a reasonable, ongoing effort and a real plan to get better over time.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll set the foundation, why accessibility is not optional. Then, we're going to dig into the 3 core pillars of access. After that, we'll look beyond the actual bus to things like policies and digital access. We'll see what the ideal looks like versus the reality, and then we'll wrap it up by busting some common myths and laying out a clear path to compliance.
Okay, so if you're a transit agency, where do you even start? ADA compliance can feel, well, huge. But it really comes down to 3 main pillars. This framework helps make sense of the whole thing. It covers the vehicle itself, the stops, and the vital alternative services that have to be there. So pillar number 1 is the vehicle itself. This is probably what you picture when you think of an accessible bus. It's got to have a working lift or a ramp. And inside, there needs to be a proper system to secure wheelchairs safely. You also need clearly marked priority seating, and this is super important for riders with visual or hearing impairments. You need both audio announcements and visual signs for all the upcoming stops.
And this right here highlights a huge pitfall. A bus with a broken lift? That's not an accessible bus. A driver who has no idea how to work the ramp might as well not even have one. See, having the equipment is just the first step. True compliance means that equipment actually works, and the staff knows exactly how to use it. It's about function, not just having the feature.
All right, on to our second pillar, the stops and stations. Because accessibility doesn't just start when you get on the bus, it starts at the curb. A rider has to be able to get to the stop safely and then wait there safely. That means a clear path, a secure waiting area, not some muddy ditch, and a sign that clearly marks where the stop is.
In this image, as wild as it might seem, it is a shockingly common sight, especially out in rural areas. A sign on a pole stuck in a grassy ditch is not a bus stop. It's a barrier. For someone using a wheelchair or even a walker, the journey is over before it can even begin.
Now, this brings us to our third and final pillar, paratransit. I want you to think of this as the essential safety net. For when a person's disability makes it truly impossible to use the regular bus route, the transit agency must provide an alternative service. And it's so important to stress, this is a complementary service, not a replacement for making the main system accessible in the first place.
Now, for this paratransit service to be a real equivalent, the rules are very, very specific. From the rider's point of view, it means the service has to go where the buses go and it has to run when the buses run. The fare can't be outrageous, you shouldn't have to book your ride weeks in advance, and maybe most importantly, you can use it for any reason at all. Groceries, visiting family, not just doctor's appointments. It has to support a full life.
The bottom line here is just this simple. Saying, oh, we don't offer paratransit, that's a direct violation of federal law. And the same thing goes for a service with a 3-week wait list. That's not really a service, is it? It's just another barrier. Agencies can get creative with how they do it, like using taxis, but they absolutely cannot opt out of this legal duty.
Okay, so we've covered the physical world, the buses, the stops, the paratransit vans, but you know, true accessibility goes a lot deeper than that. Now we're going to look at the invisible stuff, the policies, the procedures, and the digital info that can either open doors or, well, put up brand new walls. Kind of like the Title VI requirements, which cover discrimination, agencies have to have a formal grievance procedure for ADA issues. This is not optional. It means there has to be a clear, public way to file a complaint. The agency must log it, track it, and give you a way to appeal. You know what the #1 red flag is for an auditor? Hearing that complaints are just handled informally, with no paper trail.
Oh man, this topic causes so much confusion, so let's just clear it up right now. The ADA makes a very clear legal distinction. A service animal is specifically trained to do a task for a person with a disability. It must be allowed on board. An emotional support animal, which isn't trained for a specific task, doesn't have that same legal protection. An agency can legally deny them access if they're being disruptive.
In our world today, a transit agency's website is basically its front door, and that door has to be accessible. If a person using a screen reader can't look up a bus schedule online, they're effectively being denied service. This means websites have to work without a mouse, videos need captions, and images need text alternatives so that information is actually available to everybody. Okay, so we've gone through all the legal requirements, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's now compare the ideal, what a fully compliant program looks like, with the common failures that seem to trip up agencies again and again. This table is such a great snapshot of what success looks like, even for a small agency. Notice how it's a complete system, right? The vehicles work and they're inspected, the stops are all properly marked, they found a smart, creative solution for their paratransit, and the policies aren't just collecting dust in a binder. They're posted and the staff actually gets trained on them. This is what a living, breathing ADA program looks like.
And here's the reality check. These 5 issues are what auditors see over and over and over. Lifts that stay broken, paratransit that might as well be a ghost, stops that are literally impossible to get to, no real way to file a complaint, and websites that are basically digital brick walls. Every single one of these is a failure that violates one of the fundamental pillars we just talked about.
So the big question is, how does an agency close that gap between being deficient and being compliant? In this final section, we are going to tackle that head-on. We'll start by busting some myths that just won't die, and then lay out an actionable plan to build a truly accessible program.
All right, let's just bust these common excuses right now. Myth number 1, we're too small. Reality, if you get federal funds, size does not matter, the law applies. Myth number 2, we can't afford it. Reality, accessible vehicles are standard now, and good policies cost nothing to write. Myth 3, a few bad stops are fine. Reality, nope. Every single stop has to be accessible or be on a documented plan for improvement. And finally, website access is just a nice to have. Not anymore. This is a major point of enforcement now.
The really good news is, the path forward isn't some big mystery. It's a process. You can see it right here. Month 1 is all about assessment. Figure out what you've got. Month 2 is documentation. Get it all down on paper. Month 3 is communication. Train your people and tell the public. And after that, it's all about maintenance. Constantly checking, tracking, and updating. It's a cycle of always getting better.
And that really brings us full circle. At the end of the day, ADA compliance isn't about checking boxes or trying to avoid a lawsuit. It's about dignity. It's about making sure a fundamental public service is open to every single person in a community. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you know what to look for, take a look around. Is your community's transit system truly accessible for everyone? Thanks for joining me.